So I think we are ready to start. Hello again, and welcome to the second SaaStock event in Ljubljana. My name is Matic Uzma, and I will be facilitating this event. For those of you that are not familiar with the SaaStock, so SaaStock is European largest conference with more than 4,000 attendees. And in 2020, of course, guys had to pivot to online events and conferences. So a lot of local events happened in 2020. This is the second event for Ljubljana and I think the first event for SaaStock local community in 2021. So before we start, let me just go through the agenda, and please, let me know if you can see the slides. I heard that the slides are a little bit smaller. So first, we will have the introduction from Alex Tuma, CEO and co-founder of SaaStock, and then the onboarding audit from Mark Colgan. At the end, we have Q&A, and then finishing with the networking rooms. Further ado, let's jump to Alex. And so Alex is a founder and CEO at SaaStock. He's been involved in SaaS and in the IT for more than 11 years. And in 2016, so in 2016 till now, they had many events in Europe and globally. And yeah, Alex, welcome to the event. Please let me know if you can hear me.
I can hear you very well. Can you hear me?
Yeah.
Yeah, good to see you, Matic. Just commenting, following on from Martin Napic's comment. Nice haircut, nice headphones.
Thank you.
So, how are you doing?
Yeah, it's pretty good. So I think we have a couple of moments first I have a lot of questions to ask you. So how has been 2020 for you as a leader in SaaStock and in the events? So obviously events, offline events, the industry were totally destroyed, let's say. So what were your first thoughts in March or April 2020?
Yeah, I mean, I guess before I think of the or share the kind of first thoughts, we were just kind of commenting today. I mean, obviously, like most people in general are glad to see the back of 2020, and people in the events industry for sure are glad to see the back of 2020. But it also does feel that certainly the beginning of 2021 is more of the same if you're in the events industry. That is right, because we're still in these lockdowns, and we're still unable certainly to do in-person events, with any kind of real kind of clear horizon. Obviously, there's some positivity around vaccines and sort of rolling this out, but it's an understatement to say it's a big operation to vaccinate the world, right? So we can get back ready for traveling to international events, and I think smaller events like SaaStock Local will come back first. But to your question, certainly back first in person. So it's great that we're doing this online. March 2020, yeah, was a bit of a kind of oh shit moment. We had a great start to the year in 2020 as we were planning our in-person events through the year. We were going to do 4 conferences in 4 different continents, culminating in our flagship Dublin event, which you mentioned. We were expecting 4,000 people from around 80 countries to come to that event. So it's a real nice annual gathering of a great bunch of SaaS founders and leaders. And as we saw COVID spreading across Europe, and then Mobile World Congress got cancelled in February, and then SaaStock beginning of March, and like every other event in March and April. At that point, our customers understandably put a freeze to their budgets, and we also at the same time kind of had to make a decision, and I'd never been in that position before, to say, well, actually, look, we don't think events are coming back this year. We don't know that much about COVID, but in general, the feeling is we don't think events are coming back. It's probably best to agree that, we're going to cancel the in-person events and we're going to go fully online. But look, before we decided that we go fully online, we had to kind of get together with the team and figure out what we were going to do. And we came up with a bunch of kind of ideas and how we could pivot. And moving to online events was the kind of the most obvious choice. It was the clear choice in terms of time to value, our skill set, time to revenue, over and above some other things, which we one of the other things on the list was memberships, right? And we said, okay, let's launch a membership program, but this is not going to be like overnight sustaining a company of 26 people as we were then, and we knew that would take longer and time to develop, etc. So we wanted to move forward with the event. So I think there were some initial kind of moments where, as I said, it was a bit oh shit, and then I had a fleeting thought about, well, I never kind of planned for a pandemic, and nobody did, right? I thought, is this it? After 5 years of building SaaStock, is a pandemic wipe out the business, right? And unfortunately, it has wiped out some of our competitors and a lot of companies in the events industry. So we've been very hard hit as such. But that was, as I said, very it was just a very quick thought, and it was like, oh no, I'm not going to allow that to happen. We've got some great people. Let's figure out a way that we can sustain ourselves, carry on, with our mission, and and all the work we've done, not let that go to waste. So yeah, we acted very quickly, pivoted very quickly, launched SaaStock Remote, which is our first online conference, and we got about 3,000 people there, over the 2 days, from again, a real kind of global audience, probably again like 70 countries or so. And it was quite, I think it was a novelty, but it was also quite magical to be able to do that, especially during lockdown, and see that we can deliver value in our mission, but in a different, way, and do it online. So that was good. And so then that was the start of the journey of the year. We ended up doing 28 virtual events ourselves, but 5 conferences and 28 virtual events. So we launched things like SaaStock Sessions, which was a kind of like our version of a webinar, a bit of networking, running that on Hopin and so on, and ran a number of those. So yeah, it was a very tough year, but we got through. The main goal really for us was to kind of sustain, the business, so we can continue with our mission, so that we can get into 2021 and then think about growth, again.
Yeah, and congrats on doing it. Can you tell us a little bit more about SaaStock Engage? So this is the new app that you launched in 2020.
Yeah, sure. So with Engage, and it gives updates on that as well. So as I mentioned, one of the ideas, we came up with these 7 ideas in the pivot, right? And we've got a community, I think now, certainly on email, of around about 35,000 people, right? That subscribe to our various sort of lists, right? We also we've got a kind of a loyal following of people that generally come to almost every SaaStock event, and we thought, okay, well, what we can do, like, how do we bring our value online, bring it 365 days a year? We thought about the membership, and then we came up with or developed SaaStock Engage. And Engage, effectively, we are actually changing Engage now, kind of as we speak, and certainly like this month, just the name, sort of like rebranding it to SaaStock All Access. And effectively, what it will be is that everything that SaaStock offers, from an online perspective, you can get, for either a monthly fee or an annual price, right? So access to all of our, online conferences, We're doing, I think, sort of like monthly member-only events as well. So like last year, we had people like Jonathan Angelov from Aircall come in, Megan Eisenberg, CMO of Trip Actions, Nicholas Design, who's the CEO of Algolia and is now, I believe, just on the board, and Anthony Kennedy, like CMO at Front, for example. So we were tapping into our network to do like smaller, more regular, content sessions. Again for like an intimate group. And then the Engage, the app, as you kind of mentioned, is almost like the place where our community will live, where our customers live, and can connect with each other, and a bit of like a sort of LinkedIn type sort of app. It's mobile, but we have desktop as well. So there are different layers of what SaaStock Engage was and SaaStock All Access will be, but it's effectively the easiest way to kind of think of it is everything that SaaStock kind of offers, as a membership fee, rather than saying, okay, I'm going to buy a ticket to attend SaaStock Remote, in February, and then in September or October, I'll buy a ticket for EMEA, and then I might buy access to SaaStock TV and do it all individually. It's just one bundle price for the members and an ongoing service. And each week or each day there is there's value to be had from that membership. So yeah, that's what it is.
Cool. So yeah, I share it on the chat. So for all the attendees, please check the SaaStock Engage. By the way, is this 2017 Price Intelligently T-shirt?
It is, yeah. Your years, and Cloud will do everything around me. I think Gap has one as well. I'm pretty sure. But I mean, again, another understatement. The second one today is the amount of SaaS swag T-shirts that I've got. I probably can't. And socks, just basically running events for 5 years. I just go around the booths and pick out the nice socks, and it comes in handy when you're abroad as well.
Okay, so 2021 October Dublin event is still on hold or cancelled?
Yeah, it's on hold at the moment. I mean, I was quite positive, or I had some positivity in December, news of the vaccine. I think the whole world was kind of like, okay, great, let's just get, move on from this pandemic, and it's going to take another 6 months or whatever for everybody to get, vaccinated. And then we were like, okay, well, Dublin event is in October, we should be okay. But the challenge is that for an event of that size, and I don't think, if we did it in 2021, we wouldn't do it at 4,000 attendees. I think we need to kind of go back to it being a little bit smaller, maybe kind of not necessarily to where we first started out. But the first SaaStock, we had 700 people in Dublin. Maybe look at 1,500 people. We're still not entirely sure. But even with 1,500 people, I mean, we need to start planning, in March, right? And then, are we going to get the speakers to fly over? What is the kind of there's so many challenges around it that and given that we're back in a full lockdown right now, and the number of daily infections is worse than ever, it's difficult to talk about in-person events. So what our position is, like, we want it to happen. If in March we can make a decision and say, yeah, we think that we can start planning, that we won't need to cancel, we can deliver this event, and we'll get these speakers and it'll happen, then fantastic, and that would be the dream. But there's kind of some healthy I don't know, skepticism that it might be 2022 when the large in-person conferences are coming back. But I would imagine the first things to come back will be SaaStock Locals in person. But I also think when SaaStock Locals come back in person, SaaStock Locals online will still carry on as well, because again, we can reach a broader audience.
Cool. So yeah, thanks, Alex, again. All the best to your team, and let's hope that we get the event live event back in 2022.
Fingers crossed. If not 2021, 100% 2022, and it would be great to see everybody. I mean, as everyone will be vaccinated, I'll be hugging everybody. That's loud. It is loud. All right.
Okay.
Thanks, message.
Thanks.
Cheers, mate.
Bye. Okay, I'm switching now to Mark Colgan. Just a second.
Hello. Can you hear me?
Hello. Yes. Hi, how you doing?
Yeah, very good. Thank you, Matic. How are you?
I'm fine, thank you. So let's move forward to the Techstars 2018 alumni and startup mentor, entrepreneur, and a good friend of mine, Mark Colgan. Welcome to the SaaStock Ljubljana.
Thank you. Very, very happy to be here. And as you know, Matic, I was supposed to come to Slovenia last year, but I wasn't able to. So hopefully get to come next year or this year.
We all know what was the reason. The conference was canceled due to the COVID. So
that's right. That's right.
Before we start, I think we should share the story how we met and how we met at several occasions. Then after the first event, I think it was in London.
Yeah, we were at a digital marketing training or something.
Growth hacking event. Yeah,
that's right. And then we swapped emails. We spoke very briefly, and then I bumped into you in San Francisco, I think, wasn't it?
Yeah, on Hypergrowth.
That's right. That's right.
What are the odds? Okay, so today we're going to talk about the onboarding mistakes and how to fix them. And yeah, I will just leave you the stage. Okay, I know you can. Let me. Okay, Mark.
Sure. Can you see my slides? Okay, a big orange screen. Matic, can you see the slides? Yes, okay, so I'm getting, yes, we can. All right, let me jump back into it. Okay, well, look, first of all, thank you all for turning up and coming to listen to some of these product onboarding mistakes. And really what my aim of today is just to show you some of the common mistakes that we see at the Product Onborders, as well as Menzur has been kind enough to put his name forward. So I'll be doing a live product onboarding review. It will be a shorter version than what we normally do, but I'll be going through the onboarding experience. And I actually haven't gone through it myself. My colleague has, Helen, my co-founder. So it will actually be the first time that I go through it. And the reason why I wanted to do this is because you'll see me going through it as a brand new user. And the reason why we do a video review is because you'll be able to see our facial expressions as we go through it. But before we do, I just want to explain a little bit more about the Product Onborders. And effectively, we are just a very simple service which helps B2B SaaS companies increase visitor to free trial conversion rates and also convert more trial users into customers through product onboarding optimization. So what we do is we charge $99 and we record a video of us going through the home and pricing page, the sign up process, the first run experience, and then also we look at the onboarding emails that we receive. Helen and I are the co-founders. Helen is a B2B SaaS copywriter. I've been a SaaS marketing and sales person for the last 8 or 9 years. And we've kind of just combined all of our expertise and experience into providing these reviews for B2B SaaS products. I think what's kind of unique about both Helen and I is that we can stand back and act as almost like a completely unbiased user of any product. And we really go through it in the eyes of the user. Now, obviously, different software products have different markets. So there always is going to be a different level of technical competency when it comes to using products. So that's what we try to emulate as we go through the reviews. But really today, I want to share the most common onboarding mistakes that we see. And we've reviewed over 50 product onboarding, SaaS products since June 2020. We actually decided to pull the trigger on this business and launch it because of COVID. We saw that one of the businesses that I run is all about lead research and data enrichment, which is really top of the funnel. And we noticed, or I noticed, that a lot of people were stopping purchasing, and we lost a lot of revenue due to COVID because they didn't want to spend money acquiring customers. But one of the things where Helen and I have always had a strong belief is that there's a lot of work that can be done to improve your conversion rate. So without actually spending any more money on acquiring customers, you can still increase the revenue of your business by improving the onboarding experience and converting more of those visitors to free trial and free trial to paying customers. So the first common mistake that we see, as you'll see in these slides as well, I have a couple of bits of text on the left-hand side and the example of a good example on the right-hand side. I didn't want to be shaming any company that perhaps wasn't doing this right. So the slides will follow this format. So the first thing that we see is very much an unclear, unique value proposition. And what we suggest is that you step back from your business and ask yourself if your UVP would make sense to a stranger. Because essentially that's who your visitors are at this stage. They may not have heard about you. They may have just seen an ad on Facebook or LinkedIn, or even through AdWords, and they've just landed on your site. And your UVP should answer 3 questions: what it is, who it's for, and why they should care. And you don't have to go and create a category like Drift to create a really good UVP. And oftentimes the most simple, unique value propositions are the best ones. Another thing that we see often, this is still on the website, is inconsistent calls to actions. So you want to ensure that your CTAs on your website are consistent. If the goal, or if your goal is to get somebody to start a free trial, then that should be the main call to action, and it should be consistent throughout. And the example you can see here on Pipedrive is that they've got the same call to action throughout the page. But it's also okay to have secondary calls to actions, and they're very useful for people who are higher up in the buyer's journey. So they might not be ready to start a free trial. So therefore, a video demo or maybe talk to somebody might be a good secondary call to action. But the key is just to keep it consistent. Oftentimes, now we're moving into almost a sign-up process, we see a lot of products have quite painful forms. Every field that you have on a form creates friction and can potentially stop somebody from signing up to your product. So make sure that you only collect the form fields that you need at this stage. You could always collect more data later in your product or in the onboarding experience, but just to get started, get the bare minimum. One of the things I would also say about forms that we really see all the time is around the password field. Now, many of you that have SaaS products will have a specific password character requirement. So it might have to have lowercase, uppercase, numbers, symbols. Make sure that you explain that when somebody is completing the password. One of the first tests I ever do is put in the password 1, 2, 3, 4. And oftentimes I'll get an error message. Well, that error message could have been resolved by telling me what the password should be or what the password should consist of when I'm signing up. The fourth one, this is a really big one, is around credit card. So if your trial requires a credit card, then just say this up front. If it doesn't require a credit card, also communicate that too. A lot of the products that we look at, we know that the business owner and the product managers and the founders, they know the ins and outs of their product. But your visitors don't. So make sure that you're being explicit with if you need a credit card or not. And because what you want to do is remove the anxiety and hesitation for the user and not surprise them with a credit card field on the sign up form if there was no mention of a credit card before, that will really kill your conversions. So the message here is if you do require a credit card, explain that. If you don't require a credit card, also explain that too. Delayed verification. So this is a slightly bigger consideration, but delayed verification is really a hybrid of verification and login after verification methods. So what this means is that users are required to sign up, but are allowed to access or test the app immediately and then verify their email after. And ChargeBee is an example of a company that does this. The reason you want to do this is because the majority of people will have to verify their email. They'll go to their email inbox, and if it's anything like mine, I've got dozens, if not hundreds of unread emails in my updates and promotions folder. And the likelihood is that your onboarding emails will be going into those folders. And it presents an opportunity for the user to be distracted. So what we always suggest is allow people to get into the product, get using it, and let them verify their email at a later time. So personalization is really important when it comes to effective onboarding too. So during the onboarding process, you should really be segmenting your users based on their personas or potentially their objectives. And you can do that by asking questions. As an example here, this one is asking the person what role they are. And then you can use that information to personalize that first run experience for the user to make sure that the onboarding is more relevant to each user. And it also may shorten their time to value. We understand that a lot of products have multiple use cases. So therefore, if your product can serve a few different personas within an organization, just make sure that you're directing the marketer down the marketing route and maybe the product manager down the product manager route as well. We see that this is one thing that isn't often utilized, but can have a huge impact on your conversions too, because again, you're increasing that time to value for the customer. So how am I doing? So not sharing the progress through the onboarding experience can leave users quite confused and unsure of their progress. So you really want to let them know how they are doing. And you can use checklists and progress bars for added gamification, as you can see in this example here. And it's just a really good way for a user to feel like they're actually making progress within the product. And it also helps direct them to that moment of value that you're demonstrating to them in your product as well. So I highly would recommend having checklists and progress bars in your product. So what now? So this is often times when you've signed up, you've gone through the onboarding, the initial questions perhaps, and then you're left with like an empty state. There's just nothing on the dashboard, and we see a lot of products have this issue. And when your product requires data from the user, which might take additional time for that data to be pulled into your product or additional development support, then really you should be showing demo data. And this really is all about helping the user see how your product will look once their data is in there. So like products like Hotjar, for example, where you need to install the JavaScript code on your website, that data doesn't always come through straight away. And maybe the person who's signing up isn't or doesn't have access to that website to implement the code. So make sure that when they are in your dashboard for that first time, they can at least see an example of what the dashboard will look like once they've plugged in their data. Now, it may not just be data. An example could be templates, or example content can also help as well. If you're a task management software, for example, show people an example task. That's a really good example of using some templates and some other content in there just to show people what it looks like. Because again, there was a stat I shared on a few slides before from an Intercom study that says 40 to 60% of users do not return to a software once they start a free trial. So really what you want to do is get the users used to interacting with the product and clicking around and having a bit of a tour of the platform. And like I said, if it requires data, make sure you've got some demo data in there for them. Another thing that we see in the onboarding process is an over-reliance on text and actually sometimes videos. So really, you need to keep in mind that you don't want to make users read too much or watch too many videos to use your product. You can use product tours or tooltips, a little bit like the example here, to guide them through the task or to guide them through the dashboard so they have an understanding of what each component part of the dashboard is. And you need to remember that different people consume content in different ways. So you'll need to use different formats. So that could be video, text, videos, text, guides, or even like a demo. But just make sure that you're creating the onboarding experience for multiple types of people and their different learning styles. In personal emails, we're actually quite surprised by this. My background is actually marketing automation, so I spent a lot of time setting up tech stacks for companies from a sales and marketing point of view. It is to just put in a merge tag when it comes to an onboarding email. But we often see a lot of onboarding emails not using those merge tags. And typically, if a user has signed up, you'll likely have collected their first name. So ensure that you use their first name in the onboarding emails, as well as sending the emails from a team member, not like support@yourdomain.com. We also see a lot of onboarding emails coming from a no reply address, which is quite a bad experience for an individual. If they have a question about your product, you really want them to be able to ask that question. Now, I know that doesn't sound like it will scale. However, you want that, especially if in the early stages, you want that interaction with your users. So what we recommend is that you always allow replies to onboarding emails to help users contact you with those questions. So behavioral triggers is another key part of the onboarding experience, and by not sending behavioral-based triggers, depending on the usage of the product, is really detrimental to people experiencing the value of it. You can use behavioral triggers to prompt users to return to your product and also to complete the necessary steps. And we understand that oftentimes there are multiple steps that people need to take in order to experience the true value of your product. So make sure that you have these behavioral-based triggers in there. And it's really important if you need your user to connect a third party, so like connecting it to their WordPress website or inviting a team member to see the value in your product. You want to be tracking the fact that whether this team member has been invited but hasn't logged in, and then you want to encourage them to take action and prompt their own team member to log in, because again, the whole point of onboarding is to get them to experience the value of the product. Lastly, for now, this is a question that we often get asked quite a lot, is how long should my free trial length be? And the length of time for a free trial should really be as long as it needs to be for a user to see the value in the product. So really, the answer is make it longer if it needs to be. 30 days, for example, is appropriate if there's a lot to learn or it takes a while to experience value. The example here is Hootsuite, which I'm sure some of us are familiar with. Hootsuite offer a 30-day free trial. But when you think about having a free trial for 30 days in a product like Hootsuite, Hootsuite, for those that don't know, is a social media management and scheduling tool. So really, they offer quite a long trial so that you can actually schedule you can connect your social media accounts and then schedule posts to be posted and published across those channels. The more you do that, the more in advance that you schedule your posts, the more that you see the value of the product. If they only offered a 7-day free trial, it's very unlikely that somebody would experience the true value of Hootsuite, because they'll only be scheduling maybe 1 or 2 social media posts, for example. So the longer the trial with high activation rates can create a very, very sticky product. And it's the reasons why when consumer apps such as Netflix, Amazon Prime, and Spotify, they typically give 30 days free trial, because they want you to be sticky within the product. So if you start using Spotify and you create playlists and you listen to those playlists on a daily basis, there's a higher chance of you as a user upgrading to premium, especially if you want to skip the ads. So the lesson here is that you could read so many different blog posts about free trial length. However, the most important thing to remember is make it as long as it needs to be for the user to find the value. So those are 12. I could probably go on and give a few more examples of different common mistakes that we see, but those are the main mistakes that we see when it comes to product onboarding. So as I mentioned before, I'm going to go through a live onboarding review. And as I mentioned, Mansoor was brave enough to suggest EasyNote. And I know that they've just released a new version of EasyNote as well. So I'm just going to stop the presentation and jump into the onboarding. Now, in the interest of time, I'm not going to look at the website and the pricing page. However, Helen, my co-founder, has gone through that. And I've got some notes in the slides, which I'm more than happy to share with you after the event, so you could read the summary of this. So first of all, I'm on the, let me just check to see if you still can follow. Okay, yeah, we're still here. So I've gone to the onboarding URL, and I'm going to put in my work email. I'm just going to double check it's right. So I really like this. It's very simple. It's just asking me for my email address, which is great. So I'm going to click sign me up. Okay, let's have you on board. Okay, so I'll put in my full name. And as I mentioned before, we can see that there's a minimum of 8 characters. So if I typed in 1, 2, 3, 4, it's going to give me an error message down here. So I'm going to change the password to be 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. And I'm going to call the team name. I'm just going to keep it as Mark's team. And I'm just going to change that to color. Again, I'm not sure why I'm doing this just yet, but I'm going to just change it to a color. I'm just going to do this. Okay, so as you can see now, EasyNote is asking me some questions about who I am and what I'm going to be using EasyNote for. So this is a really good start to an onboarding process. So I am going to make this up as I go along, but I'm going to say it's for work. Which of the following describes you best? So I'm a business owner. How large is my team? 11 to 15. What is your company size? See, this is a bit odd because it's got my team, and then it wants the total company size. So again, this seems like a simple question, but it even confused me a little bit because I thought I'd answered that question. And as the product managers and as you design these products, you might think that that's quite simple. And it might just be me making a stupid mistake, but users will make stupid mistakes. And we often say design the onboarding process for the dumbest person in the room or the slowest hiker is probably a nicer way to say it. But I'm going to put in my company size as 100 to 250. What is the main thing you want to manage? I'm going to say sales and CRM because that's an area that I know. How can we contact you? I'm not sure I want to be contacted. So I'm just going to click next. Now, invite people to your team. So this is an example of perhaps an objective of EasyNote is to get me to share the access to it with my team, but I'm just doing a free trial at the moment. I'm really just here to click around and have a look. So it's probably not the right time to ask me to invite my team members, because if I do, I don't actually know what I'm inviting them to just yet. So I'm going to ignore it for now and say I'll do it later. So looking at this big modal here, this is another good step in this first run experience now, because it's helping me understand that there are some templates and hopefully will shorten the learning curve that I go through to use the product. So the one thing I would say is from a design point of view, it probably needs a bit of an overlay here just so I can read this text. It's a little bit hard for me to read. But we have created templates so you can get started working with EasyNote instantly. And so you don't need to lose time. Okay, I think the micro copy in products can be very powerful. I think there's probably a little bit of work that could be done on this one. And by the way, a lot of the feedback that we get from the customers at the Product Onborders is that our advice is very sobering, and we definitely mean it to come across as very honest and very unbiased, but sometimes it can come across a bit blunt. So Manzur, sorry, I should have probably given that caveat before I started, but I'm not meaning to be mean or blunt, but I am trying to tell you or trying to give this experience, the review, as honestly as I can. Now, if you remember, I went through the onboarding process and said that I was interested in sales and CRM. And actually, I thought I was given that information so that the onboarding experience could be personalized. Because the product has that information, then really you could just show me sales, because that's the template that I said I was interested in, or that's what I wanted to manage. So these recommendations for me aren't actually recommendations for me because I said that I was interested in sales. So just maybe something to consider. If you're asking for information, make sure you use that information within the onboarding process. But a monthly sales plan looks like a great idea. And again, going back to one of the onboarding mistakes I mentioned is that to use templates to show people the value, this is a really good example of a product doing so. So I'm going to click on monthly sales plan. Okay, that's nice. Okay, there's a lot going on. Welcome on board, Mark Colgan. Okay, so they're using my name here. So I've got a welcome. We are super excited that you're here. I hope you'll enjoy using EasyNote. So before you get started, let's take this 1-minute tour. Which one? So this is I'll take 1-minute tour. Okay, so I'm going to click. So you can see here, right, I'm a user. I've just come in. I want to get started. And I've got a video. I've got an opportunity to book a 30-minute free personal onboarding. And I've got a 1-minute tour. But there's so many things that I'm being asked to do. So I would probably ask myself, is there one thing that would be better for me to do as a new user? That might be the minute tour. The video is a nice touch, but I'm not sure it's really necessary at this point because there are so many things you're asking me to do. I can also see that whilst the design looks very nice and clean, there is something here that's catching my attention, something up here. I've got this down here as well. So there's just a lot to visually take in at this stage. But for the purpose of this review, I'll take the 1-minute tour. Okay, so now we can see that I've got tooltips guiding me through the product. So this is really, really good. So create your first task. It's super simple to create a new task. Let's try to add a new one. So to try to add a new one, Again, the micro copy is very, very important when it comes to the product, because it helps with the reputation and the credibility. If I see lots of spelling mistakes in a product, I often don't feel too confident in the rest of the product. So make sure that when you are looking at your copy, you've got somebody checking over it. And again, that's why I teamed up with Helen, who's a copywriter, because she's got a really eagle eye for things like this. So I'm going to click Add Task. Cool. So I clicked Add Task, and I know, as let's say a sophisticated user of SaaS products, that it wants me to type in a task name, but it's not actually telling me that. And again, it goes back to keeping it as simple as possible and explaining it for the most simple person. So I'm going to type in test task. Oh, if I can spell. Okay. I can't see any save button. I can't see any enter, but I'm going to hit enter. Okay, so I've done that. Okay, so there's a little bit of a delay with the tooltip. So you are great at this, Mark Colgan. Let's invite some people to your team and project. Again, I feel this is a little bit too early. I'm not sure I'd want to invite somebody just yet, because I haven't customized it to make it relevant to my business. And if I'm the key person leading the project of looking for a new software, then there might not be other people on my team that I want to share this with just yet. So perhaps the inviting some colleagues to your team could be suggested later in my journey. But for the purpose of this, I'll go through it. So send an invite to your colleague. To invite a friend or colleague or collage, simply enter their email and hit invite. So again, just double check the spelling. It's really hard to see all of these things when you're the person designing it and putting it together. I know from my own experience of working with product managers and also designing websites, it's really hard to spot this. But what we typically say to our customers is to give the onboarding or give a version to somebody who doesn't know your business and ask them to look through it. It could be a peer that you have in a different company that understands SaaS, but they could help kind of spot things like this. Enter email to invite to Mark's team. So just type in, so I'm going to invite Helen. Okay, do I want to give access to the project? I think so. Okay, click invite. Invitation sent successfully to Helen. Okay, right, so it's going to take me to the next part of the tool. So I do like the tool so far. Let's show you widgets. Okay, widgets are like columns in Excel. You can add unlimited of those in your project and rename them to anything you would like to. So again, just double check the English there. I won't mention this again for the purpose of this review. So widgets are like columns in Excel. Right, this is a monthly sales plan. So again, I'm trying to think about what I'm setting this up for. So what have I got so far? I've got sales action stage, deal size, I've got phone. Okay, maybe in this tour it should suggest which widget to add in, but I'm going to add in a rating right now. Where did that go? So you can see that I clicked over here, roughly here, and it added the column to the right. So maybe it should scroll to the right so I can see the rating. But I can see the widgets gone in there. That's good. It works really, really well. So one last thing, Mark, there is only a final step, and that is to make a search. Okay. What am I searching for? So is this the most valuable thing that a new user could be doing in the onboarding process? I would probably think if I'm creating a sales plan or creating a sort of a CRM, I might want to import some data. So that would probably be a good action point, because I don't know what I'm searching for just yet, because this is all demo data. So I'll put in lead. Okay. Lead 5. Okay, so I can see there's this extra window now, which I didn't know about at all. But now what? That's what I'm left thinking. What should I do now? Okay, I'm going to close this. So you see that now I've ended the 1-minute tour, but I still don't feel like I've fully understood what the platform is and what the product can do for me. So I'm left kind of wondering, what else to do. So obviously as a user, I can click around. There's a few things that are jumping out to me. So I can see that there's a Kanban view, an easy view. So I'm going to click on Kanban. Let's add a status widget. That's fine. Not started, ongoing, complete. Okay, so let's go to easy view. So where were those? What was the? Okay, so I've now got status. That wasn't there before. I guess that's what it told me to do. So let's change the status to ongoing. And I'm going to change another one to complete just to see what it looks like in Kanban. Cool. Okay, so I can see that it has the Kanban. That looks good. Another thing on the left-hand side, now I can see that there's icons down here, but as a user for the first time, I don't know what this icon means, and I don't know what this icon means. So what we typically suggest is actually to expand the left-hand navigation so people can see what each of these things mean. Because again, you've designed the product, you know it inside and out, and you know what these icons represent, but a new user wouldn't necessarily know that. Okay, so I'm clicking activity. And I can see show only new activities. Okay. Cool. Close that. Contacts. Let's get started with contacts. You can either create a contact or I can import. Okay, this is good. So perhaps this could have been a good first step for me, is to import some contacts. So I can see the product with my data. I can see the contact with the platform with my information in here. Now, let's say I want to have a look at a different template. It's not obvious to me where I go to create a new project, because this is just the sales and CRM. Just close that down. This is the sales one, but let's say I've got, I'm moving to a new office, so I want to use EasyNote to create a different type of project. I would expect there to be like a big like new project button on here somewhere. However, there's this tiny little button, the button down here that I have to click on, and then click on new project, and it takes you back to templates, which is really cool. I like the fact that we've got templates here, and I'm going to go office management, create. Okay, that's cool, little animation. And it's taken me back now to the contacts where I was previously at. So really, it should take me to this part, which shows me the office management, which is the template that I clicked on. But again, I can see the product. I remember that I can add a task. I can add a widget, I believe here. Yep, widget. Let me just assign it to somebody. And again, that's gone over to the right-hand side. And maybe it's Helen that I want to invite. Oh, I can't, because she probably hasn't activated her account yet. Project manager in here. Okay, cool. So, overall, I think the design of this product is fantastic. It's just not very clear in terms of how I get to experience the value of the product straight away. I think rethinking the tour to help people understand how they go about actually adding in things that matter to them. And again, when I added in tasks, it wasn't clear if I would just hit enter to save it. So maybe from a design point of view, have something which is a little bit more obvious. The last thing I like to do is have a look at kind of like the settings. I can see here that I've got my settings. So I'm just going to take a look at this. Okay, so all right, this is a lot to take in, this modal. It knows where I am, interesting. What's that for projects, your team? I've sent that, okay. Account type, 20 premium seats, cool. And I assume I can just change my personal information here. So interestingly, throughout the tour, you've been calling me Mark Colgan, which is my full name, which feels quite formal when going through a product tour. So if you just select the first name as a merge field to pull through to the tour, that would be a good idea. And I can see the rest of the settings here. So I'll pause here. We've got plenty of time for Q&A. And once again, Manzur, thank you for being brave enough to let me go through your product. But I'm going to flip back to Bevy and see, do we have any questions at all about the product onboarding, or any questions about the presentation beforehand? And I'm checking out the chat. So if you have any questions, just pop them in the chat. or Matic, do you have any questions?
Yeah, let's wait for a couple of seconds because I don't want to be the first to ask the question. Okay, you've been talking a lot about when to invite your team, and I want to dig deeper here. So when is the right time to A, invite your team, B, ask for feedback, C, ask for referrals? We know that referrals are really low. Referrals have low customer acquisition costs and usually long lifetime value. And some products want some founders wants to include this refer a friend really early in the onboarding. So how to find the right moment, or maybe the first question should be how to find this aha moment when the customer, the user is really happy. So then you can ask for either referral or testimonial, or maybe how do you know and how do you put this on the roadmap?
Yeah, so it's a really great question, and I think it's one that comes to really understanding who your customers are and what that aha moment is. And I always like to, when I talk about these kind of strategies and these suggestions, I like to take it into the offline world, okay? So I went to the dentist the other day, and I wouldn't refer somebody to go to that dentist before I went to the dentist, right? Because I don't know what the dentist is like, and I don't want to refer somebody to a dentist that I've never been to. However, the time that I would refer somebody to the dentist is if I've gone to the dentist, had a good experience, and then one of my friends also said they had some problems with their teeth, I'd refer them to that dentist if I had a good experience. Now, that dentist, again, I'm taking this offline, so stick with me. That dentist could send me a follow-up email and ask me how was my experience in the clinic. I could reply with, yeah, it was great, or on a scale of 1 to 10. And then once I reply back saying between 7 and 10, that might be a good time for him to ask me to refer a friend. So when it comes to your product onboarding, think about the time when your user actually experiences the product and experiences that aha moment. In the case of EasyNote, and you know, task managers are a very, very tough product to nail the onboarding. It takes a lot of work and a lot of user journey mapping. But one of those things could be once I've imported some contacts and I've actually built out the task or the project that I wanted to create in there, that would be a time to invite my team.
There is a question from Giga on the chat. So what's your take on the mandatory versus optional onboarding processes?
Yes, so mandatory versus optional. I think you need to give the option for people just to get into the product and use it. But I would always recommend that you suggest that they follow the onboarding process to start with. Really, it's your job to guide the user through the product and show them how it works. But there will be some people who may have signed up on a different email and it's the second time they're looking at the product. So you always want to give them the option to skip that part of the process. But really, my opinion is to always start with making it mandatory, but with an option to close and exit out of it. Cool.
Do we have any other questions? Okay, Mark, would you continue with the presentation so I can mute myself, or?
Of course. So I've just shared my screen again. So these are the notes that Helen put together when she looked at the product over evening. She said that very similar to me, that she thought it looked like she's getting a personalized onboarding experience because you asked those questions, and got excited about that because it means that you're really working hard to help me use the product better. She also commented not totally sold on the video. It is friendly, but she just wanted to get on and do things. Inviting a team member, felt it was a little bit too early, but did like the fact that it had a progress bar. But didn't love that her eye was being drawn to two ends of the screen. So possibly to fix is putting that inside the tooltip modal. One thing that we did note, Manzur, that you may not be aware, and you know, actually one of the benefits that a lot of our customers explained to us is that we find bugs that they are not experiencing on their instance. We haven't received any onboarding emails after the signups, and I checked in with Helen just before she went offline earlier today, and she still hasn't received an email from EasyNote. So something to look into for you just there. Then another of things that they mentioned, that Helen mentioned, was Kanban view felt very limited compared to maybe some other Kanban views that we've seen before. She would have liked to at least see a due date and who's responsible for a task. Yeah, the search prompt confused her. Possibly fix it with a bigger or brighter search icon. And the timeline column just couldn't make it work, found it was a little bit frustrating. I didn't actually get to that part. She said she would not come back and use the tool unless she got the help chatbot there to rescue her, or maybe with an event-based onboarding email. And again, this feedback feels very blunt, and it sounds very blunt even as I read it out. However, this is what the users would experience when they use your product for the first time. And that's why we've decided to launch the Product Onborders, because we know that so many products have these simple issues that cause confusion and frustration, which is actually turning off people from returning to the websites and sorry, to the platforms and products. Over the next 2 slides, I've actually got some information about the website review, and this is Helen's work. One of the things I would like to mention here, and we see this all the time on websites, is oftentimes when there's reviews from Capterra or from G2, or even just the case studies or customer logos, when you click on that link, it opens in the same tab. It doesn't actually open in a new tab. So when it doesn't open in a new tab, you've actually just taken me away from your website, which is a conversion killer, because I might then get distracted. And in the case of EasyNote, we are in quite a competitive space of task management and project management. And if you took me to G2 or Capterra, then I'm going to see Asana, I'm going to see Monday.com, I'm going to see Airtable, ClickUp, Trello, for example, which are effectively your competitors. So whilst you're putting the reviews on there for social proof, if you're taking people away from your website, then actually you may be highlighting the competitors' products. And especially if it's not opening in a new tab, I may never come back to your website. So we always recommend that, number one, don't link to external review sites if you can help it, but always embed if you can, or just create the testimonials on your site. And you can maybe put the G2 logo on there and make sure it opens in a new tab if you have to. We also noticed on the website that there wasn't any testimonials, and testimonials are a great piece of social proof to help increase the conversions. What Helen also liked was the mention of the templates. So it reassured her before she signed up that it will be quick to get started. She liked the fact that you used social proof in terms of user numbers and companies on the website. However, one of the things, again, that a lot of companies do is they put very, very large brands on there. And sometimes if you're a startup and you've got huge brand logos for social proof, it could actually be more problematic rather than creating trust. So what's one thing from the copy moving into onboarding? So there was a statistic on the homepage about people going back to spreadsheets, and in the onboarding we couldn't see a way very clearly to upload our own CSV. So maybe there's a quick win there to give value. And if not, then consider being able to upload dummy data. One last thing, and I appreciate, Mansoor, that this might just be right now whilst you have a lifetime deal in early access. For the pricing page, there was a little bit of a disconnect between the free trial versus the lifetime deal offer. So Helen was a little bit confused about the offer there. So Helen actually did record 22 minutes of a review. Mansoor, of course, I'll share that with you, but for anybody else on this call, at this event, you can watch it, and Matic, I'll make sure that I share the slides with you. The link is there. It's just a Loom video, and you can watch Helen go through the product. And again, don't be afraid to get feedback like this. As I mentioned, it sounds blunt, it sounds a little bit harsh, but we do our best to try and act as a user would. And sometimes change and improvement is uncomfortable. But what we see is that from people that do work with the Product Onborders and they implement the changes and suggestions that we make, one company in particular saw a 30% increase in activations in only 10 days after changing around some of the product onboarding. So thank you so much for your time. Of course, we've got enough time for questions and answers. And if you want to book your review, there's a link to the website which you can check out. And if you want to connect with me, I'm on LinkedIn at Mark Colgan, and my email is mark@theproductonborders.com. Thank you.
Thank you, Mark. I would like to open the Q&A again. And wait a couple of seconds. If not, I
Sure.
have one question. So we've been talking about the copy, and I have a question. So usually with the copy, you somehow hook the user, and then you have to deliver it in the product. Is there any way to check, to A/B test maybe the copy, besides having the onboarding expert? So what I'm thinking is, let's say, putting two different ad sets on Google or Facebook ads, checking the copy and see which copy is performing better, just maybe with a small budget, and then deliver this promise through the onboarding. So to keep the question short, how to know when you're really biased when you're building your own product. So how to test the copy, that the copy is right?
Yeah, so I think you can test the copy from an ad to a landing page, or maybe even your homepage, and you can test the copy on your website to convert to the sign up process as well, to see how many free trial signups you get. When it comes to A/B testing your actual onboarding experience, yes, you can do that. But really it requires you to use tools, or you can build your own, which takes a lot more development resource. I know that Salesforce actually went through a process of testing their onboarding process, and they found that allowing people to self-serve in onboarding was far better than having them go through the kind of product tour and following the modules. Helen actually interviewed Joren over at Salesforce, which I can provide the link to, because he goes into a lot more detail about that. But yes, you certainly should be testing, always be testing. But I think the key thing here is that before you test and when you're just building out your onboarding process in the first place, just design it in a very, very simple way. Almost if you were to give to your grandmother or your mother or your father, somebody who isn't that technically minded as you or your team, and have them go through the experience, that in itself will yield far better results for you than not doing that and then A/B testing two different versions, which then still don't make sense to a new user.
Yeah, makes sense. And yeah, so usually when we launch the product, we don't have a lot of traffic, so it's hard for us to test with optimizing other tools. So do we have to, and when do we have to change the onboarding? So with early users, you probably have a different buying persona than once you have 10,000 customers. So how do you know when to change the onboarding because of the new batch of users?
Yeah, that's a really good question, and I think you have to really look at the macro vision picture of it all. So if you're completely changing the positioning and the messaging of the website, then you probably want to change your onboarding process as well. Really, when you're very early stages, every user that signs up, you should be really trying to reach out to and speaking to them. It's something that doesn't scale, but it's something that can provide some really valuable insight at the very beginning. There will be moments where you speak to these people, you speak to these users, and one of the features that you didn't think was that important was actually very important to the majority of them, or to a large number of them. And then that can influence how you improve your onboarding and change your onboarding in the future. Of course, as you release new features and new releases to the product, you'd also want to improve your onboarding then. But without the volume, as you say at the beginning, it's probably best to speak to those users who are friendly enough and open that they will be happy to give you feedback. Not everybody will be though, so don't be offended when people ignore your emails.
Okay, do we have any other questions from the attendees? I guess not. So Mark, you can stop sharing the screen.
Okay.
Yeah, so I can see you. So yeah, thanks again for joining us today. It was a pleasure again to see you. Hopefully, to meet you in 2021.
I hope so.
You're in Portugal.
Yes, yeah, I'm in Lisbon now for the foreseeable.
Okay, what's going on in Portugal? I saw that a lot of tech founders are moving from all over the world to Portugal.
Yeah, I think if they're from the UK, they're escaping Brexit because it was quite an easy process to get a European residency in Portugal before the 31st of December. But I believe there's quite a few tax initiatives from Portuguese government as well, which makes it fairly attractive. And the tech scene is pretty decent here. I haven't had a chance to explore it properly yet, but I will be hopefully in 2021.
Okay, so yeah, once again, thank you very much. I hope that Mr. also enjoyed your feedbacks. Now let's switch to the networking and close the session. Once again, thank you all for joining today. And let's go to the chat rooms.